Hey guys, how you doing? How you doing? I'm Craig here. This is the second episode in my new series on my island adventures, and this story is taking place in Tahiti, on the island of Moorea. And I should tell you that I tried making this video just whatever earlier, but there was just too much, man. I have to make these videos shorter. I can't do that, man. There's just too much going on in the story because I don't really rehearse it. I mean, I tried videoing it before, but I don't really rehearse it. So as I'm telling the story, as I'm remembering the stories, I start remembering other aspects of it, and I go, oh, and then I just continue, and next thing you know, it's this massive story that's probably going to take a couple hours or something, and then my phone battery runs out, whatever, crazy. But anyway, so I just figured I'd try and shorten it up, maybe save some of the intricate details for for later or whatever. But if you've never been to Tahiti, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard, oh yeah, Tahiti, it's definitely one of those places where you probably want to go. I have found over the years with all the different islands I've been in different regions, that even though they all share some of the same unique qualities with respect to cultural dance and song and music infused in there, and a lot of the same fruits, tropical fruits and things like that, the water, I think, is one thing that has been different for me. It's not just more blue or whatever it is. Some of the water is just like really clear, and of course some of them's more as higher salinity, so it feels different on you and stuff like that. And I've noticed that, in Tahiti, or French Polynesia, in the Windward Islands, this area is one of those where you have to see it to believe it, because it's just so beautiful. And I think it was shortly after college, maybe, or maybe when I was during college. I can't really remember the dates, but a friend and I went. One of my best friends, actually, we went to Tahiti, flew into Phet, which is the capital city, and from there we either took a small plane or a ferry. It might have been a ferry over to the island, much smaller island of Moorea, and we decided that we'd just get scooters or whatever, and we would go around and try and find a place to stay, because back then, pretty much what you did is, we were backpacking, we had backpacks, just go and try and find somewhere. And we found this idyllic little kind of backpacker's paradise right on the beach, although in Tahiti and the islands, because a lot of those islands are, they're volcanic, right? So they have very tall peaks and stuff, and so everything is on the shore. And this one particular place had, it had like kind of like a big long house. They were kind of almost like dorm rooms or whatever, where you could sleep multiple people in one room. And then they had a couple of, maybe only 2 or 3, like bamboo huts on the beach. And the one on the right side kind of stood by itself, and it had its own little kind of frontal area with a seawall before the more sand and the beach, and it was split level. You could go upstairs and sleep in the A-frame part of the hut. They had a couple beds downstairs, so we just rented that whole hut. It was the biggest one. We're all right, so we rented that one. Have a great time, and we started immediately getting in the water, doing whatever. And one of the things we decided we were going to do was to go to this dinner show that was down the beach, down at the, I think almost like the dead end. It was very popular, just like, and if you've ever been to Hawaii and to the very famous Polynesian dance dinner show, the whole fire dance, and you eat, and people singing and all that stuff. And it's in Hawaii, it's like a national show practically. But just about every single island, if not every island that I've been to, except maybe in Europe, but certainly every island in the Pacific and the Caribbean I've been to have a dinner show kind of activity, because it brings in the tourists, and every island is a tourism-based economy. So although at that time, you know, that was probably going to be the most expensive activity that we were going to get into, so we're like, yeah, let's do it, because, you know, it's all you can eat, whatever, all you can drink, that kind of thing. And we went down there, sat in the bleachers, watched the whole show, ate and everything. I think it was barbecue, something. And just like many of these shows, during the dance part, you know, when they're dancing, the people will come out into the audience and take participants. They're, come on, you got to go dance, you know, you got to dance with us and learn how to hula or whatever, that kind of thing. The show was really cool. It was one of those shows where they told a story, you know, where like the two boy and girl meet, you know, and they whatever kiss under the stars and stuff, and then they're gonna be married, and so they, you know, put them in a canoe, and they raise up the canoe and they carry it to the water, and the water goes out into the moonlight, and that's where like they consummate the marriage or whatever, and then the canoe comes back, and then everybody brings them in and a big party ensues. And you know, and now that was pretty cool to watch this story kind of act out like that. But invariably we had been drinking, and so they pulled us in to do some dancing, and we were dancing, just, you know, be part of it, you know. So we're having a really good time, woo, and all that great stuff. And then, you know, after the show kind of is over, they have like a little bamboo village that they also have on the venue. You know, you can walk through the village, and you know, there might be the hut where the lady is weaving the coconut palm into baskets or something, and then where somebody chopping coconut or whatever, and you know, you can take pictures, and your typical South Pacific kind of venue with all those idyllic things that people in mainland America or Europe don't often get to see. And so, and I can't remember exactly how it happened, but the people that we were with, the girls we were dancing with and all that, and even maybe a couple of the boys, that they kind of walked with us and everybody else. I think they kind of guided us to go like, all right, now you can go through the village and look at everything or whatever. And if I remember, we had been drinking before we even went there. And so without getting into too much detail, I was walking through there, and I was hammered, of course, and this one girl, you know, she basically pulled me into her little cabin room, or not cabin, but the bamboo hut, into the room there, and you know, I was just to check out where they stay, because they live and work there too, I guess. But I think when I walked in, I was like, yeah, and there was like a bed on, you know, she had a bed, just like I think it was like a single bed or something like that. And so I jokingly or whatever, I kind of plopped down on the bed like, yeah, just, and then I passed out. So I woke up, I mean, I literally passed out. I must have been tired from swimming all day too or whatever, but you know, there was all this commotion going on, and I laid down, I was out cold. I woke up, it was like 3 or 4 in the morning. I'm like, oh my God, where am I? What am I doing? What's going on? What's going on? And she was there too, or she was sleeping. I think she was sleeping on the floor beside the bed or something. But I got up and I was like, oh dude, I gotta get out of here. And so I left, and I knew that it was at the dead end. If I just go that way, I'm gonna find my bungalows, you know, where we were staying. So I got out in the middle of the dark. I was still hammered, I could tell a little bit, and then, you know, hung over or whatever, and got back, and of course my friend's like, dude, where the hell were you, bro? And I was like, I went in that room, I was passed out, man. And so we just had a good laugh about it, and it was a good time, and we're like, oh yeah, that's cool, it's cool. And so then that day, it was like the morning or afternoon, I forget, but I was outside the bungalow, and I was sitting like, you know, kind of like this on this piece of furniture. I was sitting with my legs hanging over the little bit of a seawall right there, and the sand went out, and I think my friend was out in the water, you know, it's waist deep or something out of the water, and then all of a sudden this canoe, typical kind of Polynesian canoe. It had like 4 or 5 guys in it, maybe three, 4 or 5 guys in it, and it started coming there, you know, they started coming down the beach, and of course it looked really cool. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then from way over there, I could see that pretty much all those guys were looking right at me. And I was like, that's kind of intimidating. And sure enough, they just keep coming, and they park it right on the shore, right in front of me. And at that point, I'm still looking at them, and they're not smiling or anything. They don't really look all that happy. And I'm like, holy shit, well, what's going on? And I started thinking, you know, did I do something when I was drunk or whatever? Did I break something or whatever? And they came up, and I tried to be like, oh, hey, how's it going? Yeah, you got the dance, your dinner show, you know, you guys are from the, I didn't know if they were from there, but they were. But I was like, yeah, and they sat down on the seawall. Actually, 3 of them, I think, sat down, and there was another one standing here, or 2 of them, and they kind of almost were kind of semi-circling me, you know, and I'm thinking, oh man, this is gonna hit me in the face. And the one guy that was here, that was next to me, seemed to be like the boss, and he was, his name was Tana, actually, and evidently Tana was, his friends, when they were trying to communicate with me, because remember, if you don't know, that's French Polynesia, and through that influence, French is basically the spoken language other than Tahitian. All these guys grew up, you know, younger, so they're going to speak French. And even though I took French in college, I wasn't, you know, certainly wasn't fluent, and they probably had their own Tahitian accent in that French or whatever. But one of the friends had let me know that this guy Tana was actually, I think he called him, he was the prince, and basically he was the son of, you know, the chief of that island or whatever. So, you know, respected, and this was his crew or whatever. And he wasn't doing much talking, and he was like, you know, still not eyeing me or anything, but I could feel that there was a problem. I don't know what the problem was. But then I started to feel like, yeah, we're gonna fight. And so I'm like looking at my friend on the wall, like, dude, you want to come up here, man? Because I think we're gonna fight. But I was like, what am I gonna do? Shoot, man, there's too many of these guys and all that. And so and then I remembered, I think we still had 2 bottles of, like a bottle of Captain Morgan spiced rum or something, and I don't know, a bottle of tequila or something. And that was significant because in Tahiti there is a massive tax on alcohol. It's like 2,000% or something. I don't know. I think I remember like a normal bottle of whiskey would cost in Tahiti, it would cost like 200 some bucks for 1 bottle. And for that reason, the Tahitians, they're not drinking whiskey. You go to a bar and you can drink beer, fair enough, cheap, you know. But if you want a shot, like say you want a shot of Jägermeister or whatever, that shot is going to be like 20 bucks or something. It's insane. So, but if you're a tourist, you're able to bring with you, each person can bring with you 2 bottles. Good to know if you ever go to Tahiti. Bring your own booze. If you want to, you know, if you're going to be drinking, making your Mai Tais or whatever. And so, so I go, hey, you guys want to drink? You want to drink? And they're like, you know, like, yeah, let me go. And I walked inside the cabin, you know, inside the hut to grab those bottles. But while I was in there, I'm looking for like a weapon, you know, what kind of, you know, I need some brass knuckles or something, you know, because, you know, it was still very, you know, touch and go. But I came out with the bottles of like, hey, you got like this, and then, you know, a couple of them were like, whoa, nice, you know. I'm like, yeah, you drink. And so we wind up starting drinking, although I remember specifically kind of mouthing the drink. I didn't really want to drink because I wanted to be, you know, ready. And they were drinking and, you know, having a good time, and then from drinking, the whole vibe went much calmer all the way down to like chill. And then I don't know if I said at that point to to those guys. I don't know if I said like, oh yeah, I was hammered over there, but that's how I'd come, you know, like let them know that I know that, you know, I had been drinking, or that I slept over there. And because it wasn't, I don't think it was a resort where you could sleep. It was just straight up dinner show stuff. But the workers obviously would maybe sleep there. But it was still kind of very intimidating. I was like, yeah. I think I might have even let the guy keep the bottles that weren't finished. Like, oh, you guys should take those with you. And then, so what happens is, before they get up, the one guy says, oh, hey, you know, cool, if you guys want, you can come back to the dinner show tonight. You don't have to pay. Well, you know, it's there, you know, he's like, Tana was like, you're gonna be our guest or whatever. And I was like, yeah, that was cool, or, you know. And so they had left. And then when my friend came back, we were talking, it was like, I think we had already been drinking or something, and then it was getting about 6 o'clock when the show was going to go, and it was like, hey, should we go? Should we go back over there, you know? You know, those guys might be still pissed at us, and I go, I wonder if, you know, with the girl that's in there, you know, she gonna come after me, want me to spend the night or something like that. And so anyway, we decided that if we don't go, that maybe that's a bigger problem. So we went back there to the dinner show, and they were there. The guys all came and said hello and all that stuff like this. We watched the show and all that stuff. And we didn't want to walk into the little village anymore. One, because we already saw it. But it was just like, hey, those guys. And then when they were done, these boys, they all walked with us out because we were going to walk back to the bungalows, right? So on the road, like right out of the dinner show place, you know, the jungle is straight up over like this, and the road is pitch black. I mean, you know, my friend got like 10 feet in front of me or whatever, and it was black. You know, we couldn't see each other, like, you know, close proximation. I think I wound up bending down and picking up a rock just to have in my hand, you know, because again, there was still this kind of, you know, something wasn't straight, you know, it was still very intimidating. And and we kind of separated like that, and those guys walked with us, and they're kind of spread out, and I was still thinking that, you know, this is where I'd take the shot in the back of the head, you know, or something like that. And but then, you know, that part of the road kind of ended, and then it opened up to much more, you know, moonlight or whatever you could see, you know, where you were going and stuff. And that's where they kind of just said, all right, well, hey, we'll see you later, you know, and they all turned around and went back. And I was like, oh, that's cool. You know, and then we made sure we got back to the bungalows. And so then we were there, and I think the next day, that girl whose house I was in and another girl come riding up on motorcycle or on scooter, and they're like, hey, and they're trying to be all like, hey, you guys, and they came to us, and I think that, I can't remember, I think that place might have had a pool, because I have this picture of the girl walking around the pool or something, but picture in my head. And but anyway, so they were there, and they're like, yeah, you know, they wanted to kind of hang out, but I was like, I was already feeling like, you know, the boys probably not, all the boys, whatever, they probably ain't gonna like this, you know. And so we kind of just, you know, ultimately sent them packing. And then all of a sudden you could hear like the beating of the wood, like, you know, like drum, but it's actually, what it was the guy was playing the kind of drum, but on the side of the canoe. And so the canoe with the boys in it comes back, it's probably around dusk or whatever, comes back and turns in and parks at our place again, you know, and all the guys get out, and we're like, hey, what's up? And I remember the guy asking me something about the girls being at our bungalow, and I forget what we told them, but I think I remember saying like, oh yeah, they came on their motorcycle, they have a problem with the bike or something, and then they go, you know. I didn't say that they hung out and played with us or anything like that. I just like, yeah, they came, and then they left. And so the boys were like, oh yeah, yeah. So I remember we were sitting down at one of the picnic tables outside, because this place had also, other than the huts and stuff, they had a long community kitchen kind of place where all the backpackers, people that stayed there, could just come down, bring your own food, and use the pots and pans. You could cook, and there's a barbecue. You could sit out on these picnic benches, which is cool, because then you meet people from like Spain and France, of course, and all those other backpackers. It's very cool. And we were sitting there at that picnic bench, and I used this opportunity to explain to the guy that night, drinking way too much at the thing, and I was walking down and looking at this stuff, and then I went into I didn't want to say that the girl pulled me in there, because I didn't know what his relationship with them was. So I said I went in to look, and then I just pass out on the bed. I wake up 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and then I leave, and basically let them know that nothing happened in there. I was just hammered. And although one of the other guys had to translate that to him a little bit, because he spoke, or he better understood English, and so he was telling this this Tana, and that seemed to also bring it down. I think he was saying thank you. I think Tana was saying thank you for sharing that, or like that, and it was all cool and stuff like that. And then I don't know if it was when they stayed there, or if it was that night, or did they come back, but they wound up hanging out with us there, and the guy did, we were drinking, of course, and the guys doing their own fire show, like right on our beach, in front of our cabin, and in front of our bungalow, and the other people, the backpacks were there too. They're like, wow, very cool. And they're like this, and then we were drinking, and I do remember taking the fire stick and spinning it myself and stuff, and at the same time, having fire land on me and burn my damn arm or something, maybe my hair, just jump in the ocean, put yourself out. But I remember my hands being burned, and but the whole event was very, very cool, and did like this. They weren't smiling a lot, so I'm not sure that, they're still kind of bummed about all the events or whatever. But I think we talked further, and I became to understand that Tana is, because he's the chief's son or whatever, he's kind of in charge of all the women. They're not like betrothed to him or whatever, but they are, if anything happens to them, then maybe he gets in trouble or something. So it was okay if I was to spend the night, but that would have probably been by permission first or something. But I do know that Tana was very, very cool after that. After we had talked and stuff, and he was really good, and he broed us out on a lot of stuff, and again with the dinner, or with the fire show at our own beach and all this and that. And even when we left, we left, I think we did leave on a plane. Yeah, I think it must have been planes. I think those guys came to see us off, and during that, he had, on the way there, I guess he had weaved a coconut bracelet with a little shell on it. Typically you see these all over every island for sale, but he had said that he made it on the way over or whatever, and then he put that on my wrist. Just have good luck and good friendship from like that. And I thought it was super cool, and it really did make me feel made me feel pretty good, that that everything was cool or whatever. And it made me also always remember this guy's name, Tana, because I've written some stories and this and that, and used Tana's name in the namesake of some of my writings. The whole time that we were there was this idyllic, really tropical South Pacific paradise. Many of you might not have heard of Moorea, but you probably heard of Bora Bora. And Bora Bora is just part of the Windward Islands too. It's just down the way. I think if you had to take a boat from Moorea, it was like half a day's trip or something to get out to Bora Bora. But most people would probably fly from Tahiti on the Big Island to Moorea for all that. And this was, again, so long ago that it was very underdeveloped. I think now the, Moorea is, I just saw not too long ago, and that's why I picked one of these islands. Like, oh, I remember there, I want to tell that story. Well, they have a Hilton there, and that Hilton has got one of the bungalows, goes all the way out into the water. I don't think they had water bungalows when we were there. And but it was a super cool experience. One of the things that I remembered when I was trying to tell this story was that, in those days, I always, for sure, I was chasing the sun, and I never wore my shirt. I wouldn't even wear shoes if I could help it. So you're pretty much in your swim trunks all day. I had always been on the beach in Huntington Beach, so I was already pretty tan. But the sun is different when you go all the way in the South Pacific, because you're on the equator, and the sun is at its closest to the equator, right? And that isn't significant because you'll burn more. And even though I was tan and everything, I was getting like super sunburned. And of course, when I'm snorkeling, I'm just on the top of the water looking down, right? So my shoulders are exposed and then covered with salt water, exposed and covered. And so my shoulders, after snorkeling, and actually I was spearfishing. We had I didn't have a spear gun. I had used a spear gun maybe just a couple times before, but I think this is the first time I used a sling, which is really just the long piece of wood and a metal rod that was sharpened for a point. Put a little chip with a gig on it, and then a little divot in the back. And what you did was you pulled your surgical tubing. Really, you pull the surgical tubing with your hand, and you put it in the cleft of the rod, and just held onto it. And then when you got to your fish, you just let it go, and it would send that rod. I mean, I think the rod might have had a hole in it, so you could make a string, and but usually I was shooting close range, so boom, it hit the fish, and then I would get the fish. And this one time, I was catching fish, and I was really good at it, so I, kept a lot of fish. I was putting them on a string where you hold your fish, and but I had like about 15 fish on there or whatever. And then we were out on the main reef out there, and that's where all the reef sharks go back and forth. So I wasn't paying attention, but the guy that drives the boat dove in and swam down to like where I was at, and he's all like, bro, you gotta go up, I'm like, what the fuck, man? I'm killing fish, He's all, your fish, get the shark, And I'm like, oh. So I swam out and got threw the fish up on board. And I'm not sure if we saw sharks right then, but my fish were bleeding, and I knew enough about sharks, like, yeah, that's probably not a good idea. So I'm lucky I didn't get the shark encounter. But over the days, my shoulders started to burn, and they burned pretty good. I was like, usually when you're sunburned, you'll burn, and then you'll dry up, you peel off, So my shoulders wound up burning like third degree, and the peeling was not even peeling, it was more like a scabs, and then the scabs would break and the blood would come out, and I'd try and wash it off, try and make it soft, but I would still go in the water, back in the water, because actually in the water it felt better, although it probably was not better for it. And so it kept getting worse and worse. And then this one day, I remember the guy took us out in the boat. He was going to drop us or take us out again to the little islands within the lagoon. I think they call them motus. The little motus, which really it's kind of like, remember how islands are made, right? Volcano goes up, reef builds around it, then it subsides, and it leaves a space between that edge of the volcano and the old reef that was attached to it, and this creates the lagoon. Almost all islands will be like that. And then the distance between the outer reef and the island can be really far, or it can be short or whatever. And then it can also have these little islands that maybe the currents built up sand, and then sand got seeds and trees grow and more sand, and the next thing you know, you got a little island out there in the lagoon, or a little motu. And maybe sometimes they set up bamboo hut out there for lunch and stuff like that, and but we just like, hey, the boat, they're gonna take the boat out, so we just run over and hop in the boat. No shirt, no shoes, just trunks. And as soon as we take off, I realized that I probably should have got my shirt, because the sun was hitting my blackened, scab-laden shoulders, and it was just burned. It's like somebody took a hot barbecue coal and dropped it on my shoulder. I mean, I literally was just gonna go and just dive off the boat into the water, but we were kind of going fast. I couldn't really do that. It was just super painful. But I looked down at one of the other people, one of the other backpackers or whatever on the boat, you know, like had their stuff there, a shirt and towels and stuff, and I was like, hey man, I you know, I was gonna take my trunks off and just be butt naked and put my trunks over there, but I thought, you know, these people might not like that. So I the lesser of two evils, I just grabbed somebody's like small shirt, and I was like, put it over my head. I didn't let it touch my shoulders because they were already leaking, so I just put it over my head. I'm like, the sun is baking. I'm sorry, man, I'm sorry. And the guy was like, what, dude? My shirt. Man, I'm sorry, man. Buy a new one. But we got through it, and you know, came back, and I think got more fish, and then, you know, at the bungalows there's water taps, so I cleaned all the fish right there, gutted them, cleaned them all right there, and I think we gave a whole bunch of them in a net bag to the boat guy, and but you know, barbecue them right there, let people enjoy it and stuff, and they were all stoked, you know, that we had so many fish and all that. But I think I might even still have scars on my shoulders from those scabs, man. I would, even in the evening, we'd go out, you know, to get some food and stuff. I would take a shower and all that stuff, and then I put a t-shirt on, and then, you know, the t-shirt itself would start to have dots on it because I was bleeding so much from the sun. So, lesson learned there. Don't. And the sun was just, like I said, the sun was just different. Being on the equator, it was hotter, and it was crazy. There were probably some more things that we got into, and something my friends are probably, that I've told this story to, might recall it differently, but that's how I remember it, and I hope I can continue to remember it by putting videos, you know, in my digital archives. Maybe 20 years from now, when I'm like 84 or something, I'll look at that and go, oh damn, I remember. But anyway, it was a pretty memorable experience that for us it was kind of like a, you know, near death, right? Almost got in the full Tahitian fight and turned it around into, you know, good friendships, and it was a great time. There you go. That was my shortened version of my island adventures on Moorea in Tahiti. Alright, you guys, well, thanks for watching. Keep watching. Next episode, Indonesia, Bali. Be there.